as a grown-up, you could over the last 5 years go, oh, it's not my fault, it was Brexit. Oh, it's not my fault, it was the pandemic. Oh, it's not my fault, it's the economic crisis that we're, sort of getting very down into right now. Absolutely, you're quite right. You can't deal with those big macro issues, but you can deal with how you respond to those macro issues. Yeah. Someone said to me once, it's not about the economy, it's about your economy, for example. You can still do something with where you are, with what you've got right this moment. You've just got to take responsibility.
Michael, welcome to the show. Now, you're a parent, you're also an entrepreneur. How do you balance that combination?
Hi, Matt, and thank you for inviting me. I'm really pleased to be here. And good question to start off with. The short question is, ask me today, and I'll give you a different answer to the one I'll give you tomorrow. I learned a lovely little phrase. So I'm an alumni of a martial arts teacher, and he always used to describe dynamic equilibrium as being the perfect state to be in when you were fighting. So you're throwing a kick, but you're balanced on one leg, but you're moving. So you have this constant sort of seesaw between movement, impact, direction, all that sort of stuff, and flow. And as I became a parent, which happened after being an entrepreneur, I realized it was very much the same sort of thing. It is a dynamic equilibrium. I have, as a rule, a fairly rigid framework to my days, even the weekends, similar wake up times, similar bed times for me, as well as the kids. And within that, there will be my gym, there will be breakfast, there'll be car runs. That's, all the sort of school drop-offs and that sort of thing. But within that framework, I'm able to find the freedom. So the discipline comes first, and then the freedom comes second to that. And on a very pragmatic level as well, being my own boss, running my own show, it makes it very easy for me just to say, fine, I'm doing football tonight. If I need to take a call, and it happens every week, I'll be stood on the side of an Astro pitch somewhere in the southeast of England, chatting away to the client or chatting away to a business colleague. I'm lucky in as much as I choose who I work with. So I choose with like-minded people who I empathize with, people who know a little bit about me or a lot about me. So it's not too tricky, but that's a definite lifestyle choice on my part to work the balance between kids and my business.
Yeah, and you said structured, but freedom. So almost like, I know it sounds a funny saying, but you structure in that freedom and that flexibility. Is that correct?
100%. So it's not like you look at my when I was a kid, I'm going to show my age here now. At the beginning of each school term, we'd cut out the side of a cornflakes packet or whatever cereal was knocking around in the cupboard, then divide it into Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then you sit there coloring it in. Green for geography, blue for history, etc., etc.
Yep.
My laptop calendar looks similar to that now. Every time I open it up, I laugh. So everything, my whole day from, sort of wake up at around 6 right through to, R&R and bedtime 9, 10 o'clock. There's a little block of color there. But that doesn't mean I rigidly sort of act like an automaton and say, right, okay, it's such and such a time, I must now eat my food. But yes, I think it was Jocko Willink, ex-Navy SEAL, always used to say, freedom lies within the discipline. So if you have certain touchstones in your week, so for me, they would be going to the gym Monday, Wednesday, Friday, getting on my rowing machine in the garage, the alternate mornings of the week. Then at the other end of the day, it would be fitting in my kids' sporting activities, extracurricular activities. Then in the middle of that, there will be lunch breaks, or there will be time designated specifically to admin. What I've done is I've kind of sat down, and over a period of a couple of weeks, I've kind of written down things when I'm feeling good, when I'm feeling low on energy, when I'm high on energy, when I'm feeling creative. So I've kind of got it mapped out. The mornings are my creative time. I'm definitely a morning person. I was born at sort of 7:15 in the morning, and I think that's kind of stuck with me ever since. My best bit is up till 11:30. So then I leave all the sort of the dull stuff. So if I have to make phone calls, if I have to do my books or talk to my bookkeeper or accountants, I'll do that in the afternoon. So yeah, I kind of have it structured in that sense, but there's a fluidity to it as well. Case in point, I'd kind of come to the end of pretty much everything last Friday around about 3:30, 4 o'clock. And I thought, well, the kids are at swimming, not my turn. I've got, until 6 o'clock, 6:30 when they come home. I thought, well, I'll just have a wander home, maybe have a quiet drink on the way and, enjoy, ease myself into the weekend like that. One of my friends, a fellow dad at school, gave me a buzz and went, "You around? Fancy a beer?" I'm like, "Sure, great." And he's
Yeah.
like, "When?" And I'm like, "Well, should we do it now?" So, by sort of blocking things off, doing things, it kind of, I can kind of do guilt free. I can
Yeah.
do guilt free at the, football training. I can do guilt free in the local pub for a couple of hours. Yeah, it's fun and it works for me.
Yeah, I've certainly done similar things where I've, throughout my weeks, just written down all those essential tasks I know I have to do, but are very easy to forget because they're not necessarily the most exciting part. And then just making sure there's time in my diary to do that, but equally making sure there's time for me. And I know I was talking to a friend last week and a couple of weeks ago, I had a really, really busy week. And I was looking at it and I was like, I've got to block going to the gym on Wednesday because I was thinking I might not be able to Monday, Tuesday, and I definitely can't on Friday. If I don't on Wednesday, by the end of the week, I'm literally going to be, twitching to go and do some exercise, and actually blocked out my time. And yeah, doing that for your both
Yeah.
your business and for your own well being. I think
Uh,
just
Essential. And you're spot on. It is a question of blocking out time. So I do that on a daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, and an annual basis. So we'll sit down January time, my wife and I, and we'll go, okay, when are we thinking of doing holidays this year?
yeah,
I'm originally from, from all over, but Cape Town is home. My wife is from Brazil. So there's always like, okay, when are we doing the big trip this year? Let's get that in the diary now.
yeah,
What are we doing for the Easter, so on and so. So you put those big touchstones in for me, and I think everyone's different. So for me, exercise is key. I mean, the three pillars that I build my business, I tell my clients, I tell my kids, I tell my wife to build their lives upon are health, sleep, and nutrition. So those
yeah.
three things go into my they are the immovables. They go into the diary on a weekly basis, and that's it. Everything else has to fit in around that. But yeah, you're right. Having that foresight and planning, knowing what's important, and making it movable. That's the trick for me. That's
Yeah.
where I find a lot of balance.
Yeah, I mean, health is wealth, which is absolutely key. And I tend to find look after yourself, and actually other parts of your life will fall into place. You perform better in business. You can perform better as a dad. You can perform better as a partner. But actually, if you haven't looked after yourself, the other parts start to fall apart.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the old analogy, isn't it? Put on your oxygen mask first
Yeah,
before helping those around you. Yeah,
yeah,
very much so. And
yeah,
and
yeah,
and I'm not any kind of guru by any stretch. I balls up on this regularly, and I'll get to the point where I'm snappy and tired and irritable. But if I stop and like look at it and say, okay, why is this? It's because I've not had my exercise. I've not gone to bed,
mm,
at a decent, reasonable time for one or two nights in a row. So everything is, if it's, measurable, it's manageable.
yeah. If it's miserable, it's manageable. I quite like that as a saying, and it is so true. I know there's things that I need to do to keep myself happy, and I listen to my body quite a lot as well. When you're tired, you tend to find you get grumpier, and you tend to find you get ill, and all these other bits come together if you're not getting enough sleep. So yeah, listening to your body's key. So
Yeah,
with
absolutely.
regard to business, how do you fit that in, and what's your business journey like? Because I'm aware there's a couple of different things you've got going on. So how have you fit
Yeah.
that in? What's your story behind all of this? And explain what you do. I think.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I'll take it right back to when I was probably about 6 or 7, and my father used to say, with some exasperation, "You were such a butterfly," because I'd be doing one thing one day, then wanting to do something else the next day.
Yeah.
And at the time, obviously, it wasn't meant, as a compliment. It was a criticism because things were being dropped and new things were being picked up all the time. But yeah, I'm very much a butterfly, and I've turned it to my strength these days. What I so in a nutshell, there are kind of three levels to things. I'm an investor entrepreneur. That's how I describe myself. I'm sort of a serial investor, serial entrepreneur, which sounds really grand, but basically it means I just enjoy solving problems with interesting people. That's it for me.
Yeah.
What's interesting? Is there an interesting problem? How many people can we help? Brilliant. Does it resonate with me? Let's do it. So at the very kind of top level, if you like, I have my holding company, which is like the investment side of things, which is Christian and Co Holdings. That's where my non-exec kind of or executive roles fall in, my equity interests in different businesses. So at the moment, just to give you an idea, um, I'm working there with a business, which is an online self-diagnostic tool for people with either sort of gambling or other compulsive behavior.
Okay.
And we're targeting specifically 3 high-pressure environments. One is the military, and we're in discussions with the Ministry of Defense. The second is professional sports, and the third is financial services. Basically, those 3, I mean, the military, for example, 10 times more likely to have a gambling habit. Um,
Wow.
Professional sports as well. You've got, there's a whole heap of ex-footballers from Tony Adams to Mertens. There's a load of guys out there who've had, issues with gambling and often associated problems with either narcotics or alcohol as well. So what we've done is created online diagnostic tools, self-diagnostic tools, which enable you to gauge in the privacy or via the privacy of your smartphone, whether you are, sort of exposed to that kind of risk. And then we kind of help you signpost you onto our panel, if you will, of experts where you're going to be able to sort of find the help that you need. So that's one exciting thing, for example. So that for me is, there are literally hundreds of thousands of people out there, probably running into the millions if you look at it worldwide.
Yeah.
We've got a lovely little digital product there which we can roll out to these people and do some good. So that's kind of an example of what I do within the holding company. Then my consultancy, which is an LLP, that's where I kind of advise small, medium-sized businesses how to basically punch above their weight. It started because my kind of background initially as an entrepreneur was within the real estate sector. So I was doing a little bit of real estate development myself. I ended up working with a private family office in London, running that for them whilst they lived in Monaco and looking after their interests and client interests as well in London and the UK generally. And I realized that the majority of property companies tend to be the boss, the number 2, an office manager if they're sort of inclined, and often an office dog, and that was it. But they needed to fill all the other gaps as well, and effectively punch above their weight. One client, for example, may be fantastic at raising funding but absolutely terrible in personal relationships, or they may be incredibly creative and rubbish on the financial front. So you look at it, and I'd go in and give an honest sort of précis, a summary of how they were sort of shaping up and where I thought if I could help them I could. And that kind of expanded because I realized as I moved out of London and I did the diaspora out of Southwest London into the home counties, which a lot of people do, and with the arrival of kids and whatever, I realized there was a lot of parents, a lot of sort of fellow entrepreneurs out in, the school car park, in the pub, at the football club, at the rugby club, that sort of stuff. So I kind of branched out because it was more interesting to deal with different kinds of businesses.
Yeah.
So that's very much what the consultancy does. And then sort of trickling down from that quite naturally came my personal brand, which has been really over the last year or so, which is the Parentpreneur, which is, sort of early stage or aspiring entrepreneurs who are also parents. And as you started off this conversation, trying to find that balance. How do you find that balance between being a parent, being a mindful parent, a present parent, but also having the ambition and the excitement and vision to get going with your own ideas?
Yeah. What do you think is the biggest, I say, stumbling block, or the biggest issue parents have with managing their business and parenthood? What's the common problem you see?
I would say it's self-discipline. Now, I'll qualify that by saying self-discipline isn't about setting the alarm for 5 a.m. and hitting the gym and, then having oatmeal on the table by the time, Tarquins come down for breakfast. It's got nothing to do with self-discipline. I mean, the root of the word discipline is self-study and self-reflect, or study and reflection. So it's self-study, self-reflection. So it's being aware of themselves. It's being aware of what is actually important to them. When I'm dealing with clients and friends and alike, I'll sit down and I run through the 7 levels of why. I don't know if you've ever done that exercise, but it will be, okay, so you want to be an entrepreneur, why? And it will start with something quite banal, probably very sort of mental, cerebral and practical. But you keep going, okay, so you want to do it because you'd like independence from a boss that you don't like. Why do you want that independence? And then each layer down, you go from the head down towards the heart, and then you kind of find I mean, I've had people crying by the end of it, not because I'm doing it to be mean, but
not because you're bullying them, no, because it's...
No, not because I'm bullying them, but they're starting to tap into what really is important to them. So for me, I always say to people, it's like people who are struggling to be sort of parents and entrepreneurs, it's because they're not clear of what their big why is. all the rest of it can fall into place. Once you know what your values are, everything else can then be sort of, reverse engineered.
Yeah. Yeah, having clarity on what you're actually doing and why you want to do it. I think
Yeah,
that's essential. And so many people muddle along in life just getting on with stuff that they think they're meant to be doing without really maybe having a connection to what this day means. And all of our days with that they are limited. We
yeah,
are all here for a limited amount of time. Work is obviously a massive part of our life, but equally so is bringing up some kids or spending time with your family or spending time with your friends. And yeah, understanding that some parts of your life are a means to an end, some parts are, your real goal, and understanding, I guess, learning about yourself. So, for your,
it.
did you have a bit of a discovery on that? Did you ever sort of suddenly realize this is what I want to do? When did that hit?
Do you know what? It probably only hit. So my kids now are 9 and 7 months, because obviously that's important at that age, the 7 months, and the other one is sort of 8 and 3 months. So there's about 18 months between them, and it kind of occurred when my son turned up, the oldest, and that really gave me a real focus. It was about creating a legacy. Sounds a bit of a grand thing, but it is about creating a legacy. I was
Yeah.
very blessed. I had two parents who stayed together until they died. um, they left me morally, financially, emotionally secure. And my job, as far as I'm concerned now, and it kind of only crystallized, it only kind of realized as my son turned up, was that I have to build upon that, I have to pass
Yeah.
that forward. I have to pay it forward and create a legacy, not just financially, where they'll have a future where they can, sort of have choice, but also where they are morally, physically, mentally, health wise, well set for, going forward in their lives. So for me, that's when it really dropped in. Um, yeah. And it was just about understanding. You said everyone's busy. We are all busy, but we all have the same 24/7.
Mm.
And it's just choosing how you do that. I see a lot of busy fools, and I'm very quick to pick people up, including my wife. And she doesn't take it doesn't take
How
it
does
too
that
kind.
go down?
Well, it's volatile. You've got sort of a very forthright South African versus a very sort of typical stereotypical Brazilian. So yeah, we have the 5th of November and the 4th of July pretty much every time those
Yeah.
discussions take place. But it works. It's how the dynamic works with us. So I
I've
think it's
I've seen
important.
sorry, just in that,
Mm.
I've seen that in someone suggests in a relationship when someone's having a little bit of a moan about something, you almost want to say, look, do you want sympathy or do you want a solution?
Yeah, that's
Because
fantastic.
sometimes,
I,
and if you say, okay, I do want a solution, be prepared that it might be uncomfortable, but actually at times
that's
we're not ready to hear that.
I think you're so right, and this goes way back to the 1990s, and men are from Mars and women are from Venus. Men, by their very nature, are like, well, let's solve it. There's a problem. Let's solve it.
Mm.
Let's go to the toolbox, the mental toolbox, the physical toolbox. How can we
Yeah.
fix this? And sometimes I think people just do want to talk. They do want to vent. They do want to sort of just like unload. But I think, yeah, for me, for me, most people make excuses, and I think that's where their real problems arise. There's a busy fool mentality. There's also a lovely quote. I think it's Peter Drucker, and he said, "Efficiency is doing things right. Effectiveness is doing the right thing."
Yeah.
So and for me, that's so true. So for example, I got to the end of Friday afternoon. I'd done everything I needed to do. If I'd been in a corporate job, I may have been required to have kept the proverbial coat on the back of my chair until 6 o'clock to give the
Yeah.
impression that I was still working. I'd done my work. I'm done. I'm off.
Yeah.
So it's being effective over efficient, I think,
y-
whether you're a
Yeah.
parent or a business person.
Yeah, I can see that, and I think finding excuses is a massive one for putting off things that are even if we do want them, they become slightly uncomfortable. There's motivation, which is oh, I want to do this, whether it's oh, I'm going to train for the marathon or whatever. And you'll see this in January. People will have lots of motivation to change their life, do this, but the discipline is actually getting out of bed on those rainy days when it's still dark outside and putting your trainers on and actually going out running. That's
Yeah.
where, we need to step up. And there's lots of things that I guess people can do. I know for myself, I try and prep a lot of my day the day before. So even if I'm going to the gym early in the morning, I don't want to have to get up and think, where are my trainers? Or which gym top am I wearing? Take all of those decisions out of the way. So it's in a pile, and
Yeah.
you get up and put it on. There's no excuse. And in fact, if I do make the excuse to stay in bed, when I get up, I can see it looking at me, my trainers, my gym top, almost like staring at me like, what's happened here, Matt?
Yeah, absolutely. It's the compounding decisions. It's a great way of doing it, and that's how things stick. Self discipline, willpower. They don't last, but habitual behavior, which kind of grows in tiny incremental steps. That's where the big sort of growth. That's where the big sort of like paradigm shifts, if you will. That's where they
Yeah.
come from.
I guess it's that the habits. I don't know if you've read James Clear's Atomic Habits, and that sort of building on little things, and sometimes stacking habits as well. So when you do one thing, you do another, and just making it easy. Because you're right, life can be busy, life can be challenging, and actually there are some things we can do to make it easier, to make the choices that maybe subconsciously we want to, but we find an excuse very easily. And I think fitness and things like that is a very easy one to almost brush off. It's very comfortable to get home and just sit on the sofa. It's very
Yeah,
comfortable to not go out when it's cold. I ice bathed this morning. It was raining. That's not a comfortable thing. But actually stepping up and doing that actually has some real long-term benefits, and it does help you reach those goals that you've set yourself.
yeah. I love that. I love the fact that you do ice baths. It's those tiny little bits of self discipline. There's the wonderful commencement speech again from a Navy SEAL, where he says, you want to do one thing today, make your bed. You know,
Yeah.
because if you do nothing else, you've achieved one thing for the day. And when you come home after a shitty day, you've got a nice bed to climb into. And it's the gym shoes next to the bed. It's making your bed. It's having the cold shower or the ice bath. It's all of
Yeah.
these tiny little increments, and it's learning where to fit it in. You're right. People make too many excuses. I know that I hate exercising after 3 o'clock. I always have done ever since I was a kid, a teenager. So I know if I don't get it done by 12, 1 o'clock, it's not going to happen. And I will just park it or do it another day. So I make
Yeah.
sure that it happens on those days. I also don't want it eating into family time. For me, with my very kind of rigid colored in calendar, 4:30 onwards is kid time, it's family
Yeah.
time, it's picking them up from school or taking them to football training, it's them going home and chilling, reading, whatever else it is I want to do with them. So you have to have that sort of, tiny little habit sort of program in place.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I like the gym in the morning or anything like that, because I do know, and I almost say it to myself, once I've had my shower, it's like, oh, I don't want to go to the gym because I'm going to get other clothes dirty, and then I'm going to have a shower. And it becomes actually a half-hour gym session becomes a massive obstacle of multiple extra things you need to do. So I know if I don't get it done first thing, I will almost talk myself out of it, and then
Yeah.
I'm sort of like, oh, actually, maybe I'm getting a bit hungry. I'll just have something to eat first, and then I'll do, and then it compounds on to you not
Yeah.
going.
And
But
then,
actually,
and
by
then, and then your
having a
kids walk.
structure, yeah,
Yeah,
and
but
then
then your kids walk in and it's like, oh well, not my fault, it's their fault, or my wife told me to go and do this on the way. So yeah,
yeah,
take responsibility. I think that back to the original question, that is the main thing. Most people are afraid of taking responsibility. I think they've had.
mm,
It's not that they've been kind of spoon fed or anything like that, or that they're soft or society. But I'm not going to be one of those people. But I do think most people. There's one of my favorite, if you like, sort of personal development people is Bob Proctor. And one of the sayings that my kids will just roll their eyes at when they hear me saying it again and again is 2% of people think, 3% think they think, 95% would rather die than think.
yeah,
And that's basically the crux of it. People don't want to think, and that's
no,
so they'll react rather than respond. A problem comes up, the alarm goes off late or whatever else it is. They'll react and go, oh well, the alarm went off. I can't do it now. So,
yeah. And I guess it's accepting responsibility as well for things. There's a difference between, your fault and your responsibility. And actually, I have that conversation with my kids sometimes. They've knocked over something or dropped a knife. Well, it's not my fault. I'm not saying it's your fault, but it's your responsibility to now deal with it and take it on. And I think as adults, we're like that. Oh, this has happened. It wasn't my fault. No, it wasn't your fault, but it's your responsibility to now work out how you're going to carry on doing something else. That one of your shoes had moved, so I didn't go to the gym. Well, it wasn't my fault. Well, no, but it was your responsibility to go and find the shoes that you wanted, and then go and get it. So I think that's another part of we're very quick to just go, oh, it's not my fault.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as a grown up, you could over the last 5 years go, oh, it's not my fault. It was Brexit. Oh, it's not my fault. It was the
Mm,
pandemic. Oh, it's not my fault. It's the economic crisis that we're, sort of getting very down into right now. Absolutely. You're quite right. You can't
yeah,
deal with those big macro issues, but you can deal with how you respond to those macro issues.
yeah,
Someone said to me once, it's not about the economy, it's about your economy, for example.
yeah,
You can still do something with where you are, with what you've got right this moment. You've just got to take responsibility and
yeah,
step up to the plate and work your way through it. I think a lot of people are scared. They can be scared. I mean, you said earlier about people who want, parents who are entrepreneurs. Another big thing I think is that they are fearful. The imposter syndrome. Who's going to want to listen to me? All of that type of thing, and that makes it that can be quite paralyzing. And I've seen a lot of very, very clever people, far cleverer than me, far more intelligent, with much more to offer, but they are quite scared to step out of that sort of
yeah.
bubble.
Yeah, completely. I mean, that imposter syndrome I think most of us have suffered it at some point. And, I was talking to someone a couple of days ago. I put a fair bit of content out there, record videos. Do I love recording videos of myself? Not necessarily, but I'm able to do it. And I feel, I should be giving that message away. But one thing that's really important to note when anyone watches any of my videos and says, oh, they're really good, I've enjoyed that, I sort of say to them, you're aware I'm almost talking to myself as much as I'm talking to anyone else. I'm reminding myself of these things. It's not that I've got all the
Sure.
answers and I'm preaching. In fact, I'm just stepping up to the plate and almost reminding myself what I should be doing, how I can deal with certain situations, how business works. And it's a reminder for me.
You are spot on. I often say it's helping others by scratching my own itch. It is
Yeah,
exactly, for me, it's like it's mental housekeeping. Even
yeah,
having this conversation with you today, I sat down earlier and just scribbled down, sort of 24 points. And even that process, I mean, I looked at the list once here, but even that process was sort of a form of mental spring cleaning. And it
yeah.
was like, oh yeah, of course, I must remember to be more engaged on that point. Or, oh yeah, great, that does make me feel good when I do that thing. Or, where is that book? I should read it again.
Yeah. There's something about just almost stepping away from your daily work tasks and just writing down a list of whatever it is. I often sort of brain dump just all of the ideas I've got, and then I can start to try and organize it into some sort of order. Otherwise, we get almost paralyzed by the big picture of you
Yeah,
might have your end goal, but actually you're almost paralyzed. How do I get there? Just writing things down is
hundred
so
percent.
powerful.
100%. The sort of image analogy I always have. I don't know if you've ever watched the Harry Potter films, but Professor Dumbledore in his study had something called the pensieve, and he'd pull thoughts out of his head and then stir them. It basically looked like a massive baptism font, and he'd stir
Yeah,
them in there, and they'd be out. And for me, I always say, like writing my list on a Sunday afternoon, and then writing the list each day, like you, the day before to plan my
yeah.
day. That's me pulling all that stuff out of the head, and that gives you the clarity. That's what gives me the freedom, is just taking stuff out. And what I do each day and on a Sunday is that list, I'll then highlight it in three different colors. There's a do, delegate, or delete, and I'll just go
Yeah.
through each bit. And the do bits are the ones that not necessarily that only I can do, because that's where you do need to learn running a business to delegate and accept it's not going to be done your way or as well as you could do it, but accept that it's better to delegate it. But the things to do are the things that give you joy, that give you that space, that give you the opportunity to work on your business, not in the business type thing as well.
Yep.
And delete is self-explanatory. You look at a list and you go, well, that's really not going to change the world if I don't do that. Just put a line through it. Done. So,
That's a really nice way of doing that sort of, urgent, important, not urgent sort of system that's been around for years. I can't remember the name of the guy, that something matrix.
it was the Eisenhower matrix,
Right,
I think, wasn't it?
that's
That
it.
one.
That's
Yeah,
the one.
yeah,
But yeah, it is just working out what needs to happen for your business to move forward, and then, do I need to do this? Would someone else be better to do this? And actually, this task, is it literally going to make no difference to anything? In which case,
yeah,
it can either be binned off or
yeah.
passed to someone else at a later date.
Yeah, completely. And I love playing with all those different kind of mechanisms because you kind of get bored of doing the same thing all the time. So you've got the Eisenhower method. Another one
Yeah.
I love is the Ivy Lee method. You just write down the six most important things. And I always choose
Mm.
three business things, three personal things, and then just do them. And when they're done, that's it. Your day's done. Step away from it.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
know,
I try and
there's
structure my day and, well, just my week probably rather than my day. I want to do something that improves the business, and improves something on a leadership level for myself, something that I've learned that's going to help me perform better, and then just improve my life. So that's going
yeah,
to the gym, going for a walk with one of the kids, doing something that actually isn't business related, because you've got to have that balanced wheel. Otherwise, there's no point having a really successful business if actually, the missus and the kids hate you, or you never see them, or any of that. It just doesn't work.
yeah.
But equally, I need the business to perform for me. I need to perform for the business, and then the business needs to generate income to allow me to spend time with other people. So it does all have to balance up.
Oh, for sure. But then I think you start getting into the world of like, the law of diminishing returns. At what point is enough enough?
Yes.
So
Yeah.
for me, I mean, it's really important to me. I look at my business and say, why am I doing it? A, because I'm enjoying it. And, let's not beat around the bush. Money is a lovely thing. Money
Yep.
might not make you happy, but was it Spike Milligan said, I've been poor and rich and no, sorry. I've been poor and miserable and rich and miserable. Give me rich and miserable every time.
Yeah.
Because the money gives you choice. So for me, it's
Yes.
about
Yeah.
choice. If I could make the right choices on my health, if I make the right choices with my time, if I make the right choices with my money, choice is what gives me joy. That's what gives me contentment. And
Mm.
you're right. There has to be a balanced wheel on that front.
Yeah, yeah. Quite often when you're looking at people in their life and things like that, actually, while I don't think money needs to be the number one motivator, often without it, other areas struggle. I can't go out with my friends. I haven't got any money to do it. I can't go away and have a time off with the kids because I haven't got the money to do it. So actually, while it's not all about the money definitely provides some of the freedom to help you balance other areas of your life. I think
Yeah,
that's
absolutely. It does give you choice,
yeah,
end of. And I think as well, people, if you're very clear on what your why is, as I touched on at the beginning of the conversation, and your values, all of these decisions become very simple. Now, simple doesn't mean easy, but it does, for me, simple means binary.
yeah,
So if I know what my goals and my values are, it's a really simple question. Does this take me closer or further away from that goal or that value? And the decision's made for you. It's a bit like,
yeah,
putting the gym clothes out. It's a bit like Steve Jobs always wearing the same clothes. You're
yep,
removing the need for wasting a thought or a decision.
yep.
So yeah, yeah,
Yeah, there is that decision fatigue, isn't it? And we often see it at the end. I see it by the end of the day. My brain's getting a bit frazzled. So any decisions I can remove that aren't really that important, then I will. And yeah, picking out the gym kit the day before. I don't want to go. Am I wearing the black or the red? Like, just I don't want a decision at 5, 6 in the morning.
yeah, absolutely. And unfortunately, because of social media, because of me, well, because of just a very much busier life, we are being bombarded with so many more decisions and so many sort of variables that we don't really need to take into consideration.
No.
Again, with the kids, I'm forever saying, not my circus, not my monkeys. Why is that happening? Why have they done that? I'm like, not my circus, not my monkey.
Yeah.
And that's not to say that I'm being ignorant. It's just not important to me. It doesn't have an impact on me. I mean, the
No.
flip side to, I said to someone yesterday, I said, because I upset someone, and I said, look, it's none of my business what they think of me, you know.
No.
So you kind of have to make decisions that are right for you, not amorally or without any sort of empathy or emotional intelligence, but you make decisions for yourself first and foremost, because if you do that, by and large, the people around you who are the most important anyway will
Yeah.
also be happy. So yeah,
Yeah, someone once said to me, "Mind your own business." And what they what they meant was, just worry about my own business.
Yeah.
Look after, am I doing the right thing? Am I, making decisions that I think are morally correct? Am I looking after the ones that I love? You know, don't worry about what other people think of me for
Yeah.
it. You can get so caught up in that, but actually mind your own business. Just keep your side of the street clean, and then you can just crack on with your day.
Yeah, I love that. That is, life would be a heck of a lot simpler if that was more sort of common sense. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's not. So
Let's finish off today. Just one tip for a parent thinking of starting a business, so that they're not necessarily started. What would you say to them they need to do, get their mindset right, or a tool, or what is it you'd suggest to someone thinking of starting a business?
I, that's a really good question. And there are so many different things, but I take it right back to the core fundamentals. Most people do something for one of two reasons. It's either because of ego or because they want to master something and they love something, they have a passion for something. If it's for ego, you're going to struggle and you will kind of fail,
Mhm.
basically. But when the challenges start to come along, you're going to slip up and just give up. So I would say if you're a parent and you're thinking that you're an aspiring entrepreneur as well, I would make sure that you're doing it because you want to master something, because you're passionate about something and you've got something there that you can bring to the world, as opposed to here's an idea that's going to give me the big flash car that's going to make me look like the big, big Johnny,
Yeah.
whatever it is. So I'd say that just be sure of what your why is.
Yeah, that's a great tip. Michael, thank you so much for joining me today. The conversation's been an absolute pleasure. And I know that, I've taken lots out of it, and I hope everyone who's listened has taken lots of insights from you. So thank you.
Matt, I loved it. Thank you so much for the invitation. I'm privileged. Thank you.
No problem.